Taking up our cross, we step into the path of life and begin to follow. We face the hardships of life and death in but a moment. Marriage, children, family. It all comes together, and at times it just seems so hard. Yet there was this one person, his faith being challenged, his belief being questioned. Slowly, year after year, life event after event, he began to question the cross that he carried and the value of continuing. One day, such a painful event occurred in his life that he fell to his knees, and the cross that he carried tumbled to the ground. As he knelt there, stunned in the moment, he questioned, was it truly worth the cost, the price of carrying such a burden? He argued away and dismissed all the words of faith and events that God had done in his life. He took the cross that he carried so carefully and began to whittle away the weight of that burden, with every argument for the practical of what could be seen, what could be felt, what could be touched. He whittled away at his faith and at the cross that he carried, until all that was left was a small cross that he could carry in his hand with little or no effort. Now secure in his understanding of God's purpose in his life, he stood once again and he picked up his cross, now in the palm of his hand, and he walked the road of life, facing all that he could face, and his confidence secure in the argument of it being practical. Others were doing the same. Even the leaders of the church were proclaiming that this was fine, it was acceptable. He continued down the path of life until one day the path before him ceased at the edge of a great chasm that could not be crossed. As he looked to the other side, there wait for him the promises of Scripture. He stood in that moment, wondering what was to follow. As he stood there, he saw another come to the edge of the chasm, carrying their cross, a cross that had not been touched, a cross that bared all the marks of the difficulties that man had been through. This man took his cross and he set it at the edge of the chasm. And as he laid down his burden, it stretched and it reached to the other side. He stood upon the cross as he safely walked over the chasm, and once there, stepping onto the other side, the burden, the cross that he had carried, had safely brought him to this side. As he looked one last time and watched it slowly vanish, he turned and he entered into the peace and rest that was promised to him. Jesus said, "Take up your cross and follow me." Will you allow the difficulties of life to whittle away the faith of your first love? When you come to that moment at the end of this path, which person will you be?